This is my story. I am not a storyteller, and I tend to ramble a bit, so please bear with me. It is more than a little bit crazy, and will most assuredly be unbelievable to most of you. I swear it is true to the best of my memory, and though it is beyond belief, I ask that you at least hear me. I have to start from the very beginning, so that you understand the whole tale. I am from a small village on the outskirts of Simoria, named Belhan. I was once a very simple young man with limited skills in anything, really. I really liked the idea of traveling the empire, so I focused on finding something I could sell as a traveling merchant. Very young, very inexperienced, and very unlucky. I had started out trying to peddle bone jewelry that I made as I traveled. They were horrible and didn't sell at all, like not a single piece. It didn't take long before my seed was all but gone. A seed is gifts, usually coin that is given to a young person to begin their adult journey. It is a very common practice in Simoria. I was gifted a decent amount for someone from such a low-born family as mine. My family are not paupers, but mostly farmers, and I have an aunt that married a blacksmith. I used my seed to buy a mule and a very small covered cart, leaving me with enough funds for a few months on the road. I was now almost destitute. I had not sold a single item from my cart to a single soul. I was in the early onset stages of desperate. It was here in my story that I found her. Well, found might be a bit misleading. I almost ran her over. Coming down a gentle slope, about halfway between Filer and King's Lake, is where it happened. Lost in my own head, obsessing over my bad luck. Convinced it was bad luck because my bone jewelry was beautiful in my mind. It had to be bad luck. Then it happened. There was nothing, and then there was a girl. I swear she just appeared. Onion, my mule, snorted and took a hard right in the road, almost sending me into the rocks that lined the lane. I heard a thump and an oof. That's when I saw her. A lady wearing a strange blue-green dress goes flying back and lands on her backside. I obviously didn't know it then, but that was the moment my life changed. Jumping down from my cart, I ran to the girl. Apologizing, I began to awkwardly try to pick her up and dust her off at the same time. That's when I noticed the look of horror on her face as she began swatting at my hands. I wasn't trying to be inappropriate, but there I was, manhandling a woman in the middle of nowhere, trying to be helpful after I nearly killed her. By her reaction, I realized I appeared to be attacking her. I stood back away from her and went dead silent. I was horrified. I may not have been a refined gentleman at that point in my life, but I knew better than to touch a random lady like that. I looked down at my feet and mumbled, "I'm so sorry, ma'am. How can I gain your forgiveness?" The dark-haired woman in the blue-green dress just sat there looking around in a panic. I was so confused what was happening. She wasn't yelling at me anymore, but instead was sort of sobbing and moaning at the same time. She was obviously in a state. Not knowing what to do, I took another step back. Honestly, her reaction and actions was making me quite scared too. Scared at what? I don't know, but with her acting like she was, I guess I was convinced something horrible was happening, and I was ignorant of what. "Lady, are you okay? Are you hurt?" She didn't reply immediately, but when she did, I was even more confused. "Where am I?" she asked in a breathless voice. What happened? Now I was really concerned at that point. Had she suffered a head injury in her fall? Was she just simple? She didn't look simple. She looked, well, normal. I decided to just answer directly, with the facts as I knew them. I guess I wasn't paying enough attention. I didn't see you and Onion hit you and knocked you down. To be fair, we are literally in middle of nowhere. I wasn't expecting to have to steer clear of pedestrians out here. As to where you are about 3 days from King's Lake that way, I said as I pointed down the road. Filer is back that way a few days. We are literally in the middle of nothing. After a very brief pause, I added a question of my own. What are you doing out here? Are you lost? The lady in the dress looked at Onion, then back at me, obviously not satisfied with my answers. King's Lake? Filer? I don't know those places. How far is that from Scranton? How did I get here? She kind of shook her head as though to maybe clear some cobwebs. Wait, I fell. She whispered, I fell off the balcony. Am I dead? Is this heaven? Oh my God, is this hell? With my eyebrows scrunched up, I asked, Scranton? Never heard of Scranton. Is that up in the mountains? I don't know much about that area. As for heaven and hell, well, this isn't heaven and hell, is more of a state of mind, isn't? I must say, I am rather concerned about you right now. Did you hit your head in your fall? I looked at her more intensely to see if I could detect a bump or maybe some blood on her face and head. All I saw was a mildly attractive woman who appeared to be in good health. I don't think so, she said. I think I died. You what? You died? I repeated incredulously. Lady, if you're dead, I'm dead. I don't like that idea, so I'm going to say no. You are very much alive, though, maybe a bit confused due to a head injury. I don't have a head injury, she replied shortly. What country am I in? What planet is this? What year is it? Okay, I thought, this is going to go poorly. She has lost her mind. Moving to my cart, I grabbed a water skin and brought it back to her, trying to buy a few precious seconds to get my wits about me. It wouldn't be good for us both to be addled. Handing her the water, I said, Here, drink some of this. It's just water, but it might help. I leaned way forward to hand her the water skin so as not to get too close. It will be getting dark soon. Let me set up camp and I can light a fire. I will cook something, and we can go over all your questions one at a time. I think I may have a few of my own. My name is Weiler. My name is Danny, short for Danielle, she replied as she took a very small sip of the water. Well, Danny, please step out of the road while I get a quick camp set up. It won't take but a few minutes. In a daze, she slowly walked to just off the side of the road and turned to watch me as I took Onion off his yoke and led him to the small field between the tree lines on the right side. Hobbling him, I tried to watch Danny from the corner of my eye, half expecting her to collapse due to the head trauma I was, at this point, convinced she was suffering. Keeping one eye on her, Danny, I began to prep a camp. I will leave all the details of that unsaid, but within about 20 minutes I had the tarps dropped to provide covering under my cart and a fire going just off to the side of the road. I began to heat up some water to make a soup of sorts. I motioned Danny over to come sit by the fire and began asking questions. I do not recall exactly how the conversation went word for word, but over the course of the next hour or so I got a story from her. A story that, at the time, I thought was ridiculous. She claimed to be from a place called Ohio, specifically from a city named Scranton. She was at a party and fell. Then she appeared in the middle of the road and was immediately ploughed down by a dusty mule. I should note, Onion was seemingly listening intently and pulled his head up from gnawing at some weeds quickly at this point. I swear he understood her and took exception to being called Dusty. As the sun went down, her story kept going. I learnt more about her in those few hours of that first night than I know about my own first cousin Rolpy. She really liked to talk. Still does, I suppose. The conversation, though it appeared to be the fantastic ramblings of an addled mind, came easy. I asked questions, she answered. She asked questions and I tried to answer, but honestly, her questions were, in my mind, insane. Just before I laid out a fur for her to sleep on with a tattered blanket to cover herself with for the night, she said something that I later learned to be truth. I know I am a nerd. That was a word I had never heard before, but she continued as I ran the word around in my head for a minute. I think I've been isekai'd. Another word I've never heard before. What is nerd and isekai? I don't understand. She kind of half giggled and half snorted, saying, "A nerd is me, and isekai is something that happens to nerds when they die." I pretended to understand, just so she would keep talking. It's a kind of reincarnation, I guess. I have been given a second chance, I guess. I really didn't do much with my previous life. Maybe I am being allowed to do better for myself. Say, do you have a sword? Can you cast magic? I laughed. No, I am no warrior, and magic is fantasy. It's for kids, and I grew out of those dreams a long time ago. She really seemed disheartened by that, as her shoulders kind of slumped and her face went blank. Oh, that sucks. So you don't have mana? Now, that was a word I understood. Mana is what we call inner strength. It is believed that resolve and physical strength can be enhanced by one's mana. I explained that to her and added that I don't believe it's an actual thing, but rather just a word that is used to describe hard work. Some people have it in them and some don't. It was this conversat ion. On the first night, I met Danny, that my journey began. My efforts to reach my inner magic and create my destiny as the world's greatest potion maker started by a question from an insane woman from another world. It would rock the very foundation of Samoria and all the people who lived there. If you like the story so far and would like to hear more, please like and subscribe. Maybe leave a complimentary comment too. If this is well received, I will... You just don't have mana yet, Danny corrected, her blank expression replaced with a look of intense, almost fierce determination. I bet everyone in Samoria has a mana core. Maybe. It's like a spiritual muscle you have to find and train. Yours is probably just underdeveloped. I can feel it, though it's there, buried deep. The conviction in her voice was staggering, so absolute that it made my own skepticism waver. For a moment, the strange, flickering firelight seemed to dim, casting her face in stark shadows that made her appear less like a flighty woman and more like a prophet. The world outside the farm, the one I knew, the one built on seasons and reason, felt miles away. My voice, which I always prided myself on for its clarity and rationality, felt suddenly clumsy and foreign. Could she really see something inside me? Something I had dismissed as mere metaphor. The idea was preposterous, yet her words lodged themselves in my mind like a burr, irritating and impossible to ignore. I sighed and watched as Danny's face lit up with a mischievous grin. "Oh, but what if it is an actual thing?" she whispered, leaning forward conspiratorially. "What if your mana is just a dormant wellspring of magic waiting for a spark?" I shook my head, my skepticism firmly in place. "That's just a fairy tale, Danny. Hard work and dedication are real. Magical sparks are not." She didn't seem to hear me. Her eyes, wide and full of an unshakable belief, she scanned my face as if searching for something. "You're a merchant, right? Your inner strength, your mana, is what guides your cart and tells you which items to sell. That's your magic, whether you believe it or not." Her words struck a chord deep within me, a flicker of an old, forgotten dream that I had long dismissed as childish fantasy. For the first time, I wondered if there was more to my work than just traveling. She looked at me expectantly, her small, calloused hands resting on the hem of her dress, as if waiting for me to affirm her whimsical theory. "Mana is just a story," I said, my voice softer than I intended. "It's a way for people to believe they have power over things they can't control." But the words felt hollow and unconvincing even to me. I thought back to a harvest years ago, when our fields had near withered under a blight, and to the desperate prayer we had all offered one night around the table, a whisper to an old forgotten god of the soil. In the morning, the leaves were green and vibrant, and the soil was rich with life. I could almost feel pulsing beneath my bare feet. It was a coincidence, I had told myself then. Yet, sitting before this girl, the memory of that strange and sudden salvation stirred a warmth in my chest I hadn't felt in years. The faint warmth spread through me, a sensation I hadn't felt since I was a child, before the harsh realities of the road had ground my fanciful notions into dust. The familiar rustle of my cart's tarp and the scent of my thrown-together soup from the pot hanging over the fire suddenly felt different, imbued with a purpose I had never considered. "I don't think so," I all but mumbled. "I'm a failure. My mana has guided me to ruin." I looked at Dani as I would a naive girl spouting nonsense, but a part of me wondered if she is really a sage who had just revealed the hidden world within my own. We went to sleep soon after that, Dani on my fur pad, cuddled under my worn blanket under my cart. I wrapped myself in my spare coat and fell into a deep sleep leaning against its wheel. I slept better than I had in years, the kind of deep, dreamless sleep that seemed to mend the frayed edges of my soul. When I awoke with the morning sun warming my face, the usual ache in my bones was muted, replaced by a strange sense of anticipation. I sat up, pushing the spare coat aside, and found Dani already awake, her bright eyes fixed on me. She was sketching in the dirt with a stick, not a child's idle doodling, but tracing intricate patterns that pulsed with a faint, ephemeral light before the wind erased them. The sight of it sent a jolt of alarm through me, but not the fear you would expect. It was more like a spark of recognition, a forgotten piece of a puzzle clicking into place. I looked at the cart, at the worn tarp, and the rusty hinges, and wondered if I had been looking at my life through a dusty, cracked window all along. Perhaps my failures weren't proof of my ruin, but simply detours on a different kind of path. This spark of recognition blossomed into a quiet, profound certainty. I felt the low hum of it in my teeth, a vibration echoing a memory I couldn't grasp, like trying to recall a word on the tip of my tongue. I looked at Dani's hands, at the stick still held loosely in her fingers, and saw not a woman from another place and time, but a conduit for something vast and ancient. Her patterns in the dirt were symbols that had been waiting for me all along. The failures that had defined my past no longer felt like dead ends but necessary turns, each one leading me here, to this quiet road with a girl who could draw starlight from the soil. The rusty cart, with its squeaking wheels and patched tarp, no longer felt like a prison but a vessel, carrying me toward a future I was only just beginning to see. I was no longer a man in ruins, but a traveler, embarking on a different kind of path. "What is that?" I asked with wonder. "What are those symbols? What is that glow?" Her eyes still bright, she replied, "It's mana. I told you. I woke up last night and sat and meditated for hours, searching, reaching inward. Then I felt it." She quickly rose to her knees and continued, "I could feel it in the pit of my stomach. Then when I felt I had found it, I started trying to move it." She started to smile as she talked. "It was actually easier than you will believe, but once I identified it and made it real, I could slowly channel it to my hands. I didn't know what to do with it for a while, but once I grabbed this stick, it became very clear to me. I just started drawing." She began a new symbol then. "I don't know what any of this is, but it's as if I am not really doing it. I need to figure it out, and I need your help." Dani stared, mesmerized by the intricate, glowing symbol taking shape on the ground. It pulsed with a faint, steady light, not from a reflection, but from within the lines themselves. The air around us felt suddenly warmer, charged with an energy that tingled on my skin. "You need my help. I finally stammered, tearing my eyes from the pattern to meet hers. Her expression was a mix of exhilaration and terror. "This isn't an artistic impulse," she insisted, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The stick, the power, it's doing what it wants. I feel like a puppet, and every time I draw, it's a new, alien thought being forced into existence. I need to understand what this means before I draw something we can't undo." Her hands began to tremble, and she quickly dropped the stick, snatching her fingers back as if burned. The symbol on the ground dimmed instantly, its light flickering and then vanishing, leaving only a dark, scorched outline on the stone. Panic flared in my chest, a cold, sharp contrast to the lingering heat from the symbol. "What do you mean, we can't undo?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "What is that thing? Is it alive?" My gaze was fixed on the faint, ashen trace of the symbol. It was a scar on the world, a permanent reminder of an unstable power. Danny swallowed, her knuckles white as she gripped her arms. "I don't know," she confessed, her voice tight with fear, "but that last one, I lost control. I drew a wheel just on a whim. I spun it, and I swear I saw a sky full of things that weren't stars." A shiver ran down my spine, more chilling than the thought of a scorched stone floor. This was no magic trick. This was something ancient, something dangerous, and Danny had just told me she was the vessel for a power she couldn't control. The stick, lying innocent on the ground, suddenly looked less like a tool and more like a fuse. Danny seemed calm, more calm than I was. Where I had concern and a dark foreboding, she seemed to have wonder and curiosity. I swallowed hard, the dry, sandy air suddenly thick in my throat. My gaze flicked from her placid face to the charred circle on the ground, a stark testament to the force she had just unleashed. It was a chilling contradiction, her serene expression versus the raw, destructive power that now lay coiled within her. "Danny, what do you mean, lost control?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, the question tasting like ashes on my tongue. "What exactly happens when you draw something?" Her eyes, wide and clear, met mine, reflecting a flicker of that intense, bright energy. A small, almost mischievous smile touched her lips, completely at odds with the gravity of her confession. "I don't know yet," she said, her tone full of that unnerving wonder. "But isn't it amazing? If you like the story so far, and would like to hear more, please like and subscribe. Maybe leave a complimentary comment too. If this is well received, I will continue Wyler's tale. Thank you for listening." Danny's hand moved like she'd done this 100 times before, even though she swore it was her first. The stick in her fingers scratched against the packed dirt, tracing lines that made no sense to me. Circles, slashes, little hooked marks that caught the last of the afternoon light. I kept expecting her to smudge them out and laugh, to admit she was guessing, but she didn't. She drew like she remembered something I'd forgotten. When she finished, the air felt different, heavier, almost damp. A faint shimmer rolled through the lines she'd drawn, quick as breath. My throat went dry. "See," she said, "it's not about the lines themselves. It's what they remind you of." I crouched beside her. The marks looked ordinary again, dirt on dirt. "They remind me that you've lost your mind," I muttered. She grinned, but didn't look at me. "You don't have to believe in it, Wyler. Just feel it." I tried. I really did. I put my hand over one of the lines like she told me to. The ground was cool, rough, with grit. I waited. I wanted to feel something, a pulse, a hum, anything. But all I got was the steady thump of my own heartbeat and the embarrassment crawling up my neck. "I don't feel anything," I said finally. Danny leaned closer, her hair falling forward, light glinted off it, weaving threads of bronze through shadow. "You're listening too hard," she said. "You have to let go of trying. That doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to. Magic isn't a math problem." I almost laughed. She sounded so sure of herself, so calm. The dirt, the marks, the whole absurd thing, it all made sense to her somehow. And I hated that it didn't to me. The breeze shifted, carrying the smell of pine resin and sun-warmed grass. I watched her trace the edge of one of the symbols, her touch so light it barely disturbed the dust. The ground shimmered again, faint, silver, gone before I could blink. My stomach twisted. "You did that!" She shook her head. "No, the ground did. I just reminded it. That kind of talk used to make me laugh. Now it made me uneasy. And I'm supposed to remind the ground too?" "No." She looked up then, and her eyes were bright, steady. "You remind yourself." I wanted to ask what that meant, but something in her voice, quiet, certain, stopped me. I just stared at the dirt between us, wishing it would give me something, anything. Danny didn't say anything for a while. She just sat there, the stick still in her hand, eyes on the dirt like it might whisper back. The silence stretched, filled with the sound of insects and the slow shuffle of my mule, Onion, behind us. He'd found a patch of grass near the stream and was chewing like the fate of the world depended on it. Every few bites he'd make this satisfied snort that sounded more human than it had any right to. "Even Onion believes in me more than you do," Danny said without looking up. I glanced over my shoulder. Onion lifted his head, a strand of grass dangling from his mouth, and blinked at us with the flat judgment of someone who's seen too many of my mistakes. "Don't drag him into this," I said. "He's neutral." Danny smiled, the kind of smile that made me think she was winning something I didn't know we were competing for. She drew another circle, then crossed through it with a line so straight it could have been cut with glass. As she finished the last stroke, the mark lit up not a bright flash, but a soft pulse of light, like moonlight caught in water. It lasted only a heartbeat before fading back to brown dust. That tiny shimmer was worse than nothing. It made me want it, that flicker, that proof. "How do you do that?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. Danny brushed her hands on her knees. "I told you. I don't. It just happens when I stop trying. That's not helpful. It's not supposed to be." I groaned, dropping back onto my elbows. "Do you even hear yourself? You sound like some kind of fortune teller." She tilted her head, pretending to think. "Maybe. But the fortune's yours to read, Viola." I stared up at the sky wide, pale blue, a hawk circling so high it looked like a scratch on glass. I wanted to be anywhere else. Danny had this quiet way of making the impossible look effortless, and every second I failed made me feel smaller. "Fine," I said, sitting up again. "Walk me through it again. Pretend I'm dense." Danny snorted. "Pretend? Ha, very funny. Come on." She pointed to the dirt. "You start with the breath. Don't think about the marks. Don't think about the ground. Just breathe. The ground already knows what it is. You're the one who keeps forgetting." Onion brayed long and loud, as if to second the accusation. I threw a pebble in his direction. He didn't even flinch. I closed my eyes and tried to do what she said. Just breathe. Just listen. The air felt too warm. My knees hurt. My mind kept counting the seconds. The ground stayed stubbornly silent. When I opened my eyes again, Danny was watching me with that calm, maddening patience. "Well?" she asked. "Nothing," I said. "Unless the magic is supposed to be sweating." Danny shifted to sit cross-legged across from me, brushing a smear of dust off dress. "All right," she said. "Let's try something different." "I'm listening," I lied. She gave me that look, the one that made me feel like a stubborn child caught stealing jam. "No, you're waiting to talk. That's different." I sighed, and dropped my head into my hands. "You're enjoying this way too much." She ignored me, plucking a small pebble from the ground and setting it between us. "Mana isn't something you chase," she said. "It's what's already moving through you, through everything. You don't grab it, you align with it, like floating on your back in a river." "Right," I said, "except this river hates me." "Maybe stop thrashing then." I rolled my eyes, but she just smiled and closed hers. "Sit still," she said softly. "Don't try to think of anything. Just notice when you do." I tried. For about 5 seconds. The wind buzzed in the grass. A fly landed on my arm. Onion farted somewhere behind me, and I almost lost it. "Stay with the breath," Danny murmured. "You're not here to win. You're here to listen." I tried again. In, out, in, out. The dirt pressed against my knees, my shoulders itched. Every sound felt too loud, birds, wind, onions chewing. My thoughts tangled like brambles. Am I doing it right? Is Danny watching me? What if nothing happens again? And through it all, the silence, under the noise, that heavy, still place where I was supposed to feel something stayed blank. I cracked one eye open. Danny was still, her face calm, like she could sit there forever. The marks she'd drawn earlier had faded, but I thought I saw one of them glimmer faintly before the light shifted, and it was gone again. "How long do we do this?" I asked. "Until you stop asking that question." I groaned, flopping backward onto the ground. "So, forever." She laughed quietly. "Probably not forever. Most people just need to get out of their own way." "I don't even know what that means," I said to the sky. "How do you get out of your own way?" "I am my way." "That," she said, "is exactly why you can't feel it." I turned my head toward her. "You realize that sounds like something Onion would say if he could talk? Then maybe you should start listening to him," she said, eyes still closed. I couldn't help smiling, even though I was annoyed. There was something steady about her, a kind of patience that didn't feel forced. Like she believed the world would open eventually, and she could wait as long as it took. But I didn't have her patience. I had dirt in my boots and sweat down my back and a hollow ache in my chest that no amount of breathing seemed to fill. "You know," she said, "where I come from, we used to sit like this too. Not for magic, though, just to breathe, or because someone told us it would help with anxiety." I turned my head toward her. "You mean before you came here?" She nodded. "Yeah, back in Ohio." I frowned. "Ohio? That's a kingdom?" She laughed softly. "Something like that. A world of pavement and metal. We built towers so tall they scraped the sky, but nobody looked up long enough to notice. Everyone stared at little glowing rectangles instead." Sounds bleak. It was. She picked at a blade of grass between her fingers. "Magic wasn't gone there, just buried under noise. People forgot how to listen, how to be still. I used to sit by this muddy little river behind my apartment and pretend I could feel something humming under the water. I tried to picture it, her sitting by a river in this strange place of towers and glowing rectangles, trying to find what I couldn't even find here. It made something tighten in my chest. "So that's what this is for you?" I asked. "Finding what you lost?" She smiled faintly. "Maybe, or remembering that it was never really lost." Her words lingered, heavier than the air. I looked down at the dirt between my knees. The marks she'd drawn were gone now, erased by the wind and my clumsy movements. But the ground still felt alive somehow, not loud or dramatic, just there, steady and waiting. "All right," I said quietly. "One more time." Danny nodded, closing her eyes. "Breathe. Don't look for anything. Just be here." I inhaled, slow and careful. The air filled my chest, cool and dry. Exhaled again. The sounds faded, the buzzing flies, the distant rustle of Onion shifting his weight. My thoughts still came, but they didn't stick. They drifted past like leaves on a stream. Somewhere deep, below the noise of blood and bone, I felt it a flicker. Not heat, not sound, but a soft knowing, like a pulse under my skin that wasn't mine alone. It shimmered for an instant, bright and fragile as breath, and then it was gone. I opened my eyes. The world looked the same, trees, sky, dirt, but it all felt closer, sharper. I felt it, I said, barely a whisper. Danny's smile was slow, proud. Good. It was just a second, but... I stopped, because words couldn't catch it. The spark, the quiet connection, the proof that something real had been waiting all along. Just a second's enough, she said. Now you know it's there, and for the first time all day, I believed her. Danny was still smiling when she spoke again. You know, she said, this feels weirdly familiar. Magic lessons? I asked. Sort of, she said, brushing dust from her palms. Where I come from, people love stories like this about someone ordinary who ends up in another world. They call it isekai. Isekai, I repeated, trying the word out. That a spell? Not quite, she laughed. It's a kind of story. Usually the person dies car crash, freak lightning, something dramatic, and then wakes up somewhere new like this, with powers no one else has. Reincarnation, I said slowly. Exactly. Though back home we didn't really believe in it. We just liked the idea that if life chewed you up once, maybe you'd get another go at it. A better one. She plucked a twig from the dirt and drew lazy spirals beside her knee. We called those stories anime when they moved, graphic novels when they didn't. People spent hours with them, whole lives sometimes. They were bright and wild dragons, spaceships, magic schools. Kids used to dream about getting pulled into them. I tried to picture it, an entire world dreaming about other worlds. So your people sat around imagining themselves somewhere like this. Pretty much. Her grin was self-mocking but soft. We were restless, always wanting to be someone else, somewhere else. Maybe that's why I ended up here. You think you got... What was it? Isekai'd. She laughed, and for a moment I thought she might deny it. But then she tilted her head and said, Maybe. It'd make sense, wouldn't it? I mean, I pick up a stick and the ground glows. You've lived here your whole life and can barely get the dirt to notice you. Clearly, I'm the protagonist. I snorted. You're insufferable. Main characters usually are. I shook my head, but couldn't stop the smile tugging at my mouth. So, if you're the protagonist, what does that make me? Comic relief, obviously. Figures. She laughed again, that light, unbothered sound that always made me feel like she knew more than she was saying. But after a while, the laughter faded and she looked thoughtful. Back home, she said, quieter now, we thought having powers would fix everything, that if we were special enough, the world would finally make sense. But here I am, and it still doesn't. Turns out magic's just another kind of noise if you're not careful. Her words hung in the air, soft but heavy. The light was thinning, the forest turning that dusky shade between gold and grey. Maybe, I said slowly, you're not the only protagonist. Maybe everyone's story just starts later than they expect. She looked at me for a long moment, and then smiled, small, real. Maybe so, Wyler. Onion chose that exact moment to sneeze explosively behind us, sending dust everywhere. Danny laughed until she cried, and somehow I felt that flicker of mana again, quiet, pulsing, alive. That's weird, I said. I feel like the main character.
Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Stay tuned for more of Wyler and Danny. I hope to see you there.